Hey there. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to start with going over the agenda really quick. So this meeting is really going to be focused on planning our days of action, which we're going to hold in September. We're calling it RAZ Days, and it's going to be a big multi-app national action to get attention for the fight for better pay for gig workers. And we're going to start by giving you a quick background on the campaign, some updates on things that are going on with specific apps, and then we'll get into our action plan for RAZ Days. And then we're going to talk about what next steps we can take as we work towards RAZ Days, which includes our Rate Your Gig tool and doing lots of outreach and organizing to fellow gig workers. The Pay Up campaign is a group of now over 9,000 gig workers across the country on all kinds of different apps, fighting together to improve pay. And our goal is ultimately to create new laws that will protect pay for independent contractors. So now our strategy is to focus on passing 3 new laws, and we're working on passing these laws at the local level, so the city and state level, in cities and states across the country. And those 3 basic laws are: 1, a pay floor of at least $15 an hour plus the cost of expenses. The second one is tips on top. And 3, transparency, which means the apps need to provide a clear breakdown of what they're paying workers and why they're paying that much. So those are the 3 basic laws that we're fighting for. And our strategy here is to say it shouldn't matter how you're classified. Being an independent contractor shouldn't mean that you have no protection when it comes to your pay. And so a lot of the work that we've done and that we need to continue to do is about making this conversation happen. Instacart workers and Postmates workers and DoorDash workers have done an incredible job of speaking out and making these issues part of the overall narrative about what's happening in the gig economy. And so now a lot more customers and supporters and legislators know that these things are a problem and that they need to be changed. But we still have a lot of work to do in getting the word out there. And that's basically what we're going to be talking about today, is how do we raise up these goals and move them forward. And we're doing that partly by targeting specific companies and partly by pushing for these new laws. And we're actually at a point now where here in Seattle, we have a city council member who wants to partner with us to introduce these new laws that we want to see for gig workers, which is an amazing start. And then we've also seen movement in a couple of other cities. In New York, a city council member has introduced legislation responding to the demands we've brought up about tips. So that legislation would keep tips separate from pay for gig workers. And a Minneapolis city council member has actually reached out to us looking for input on creating a gig workers bill of rights. So there's a lot of people listening and paying attention. And in the coming months, we're going to be reaching out to legislators in other key cities so that you can help move these laws forward where you live. As we move forward with holding all of these apps accountable and fighting for those new laws, one thing that's really important to do is to make sure that the public is hearing about these issues and our demands. And that's why we're planning a big multi-app action for this September. That's going to be called RAZ Days. And Vanessa, who's an Instacart worker who's been involved in this campaign from the very beginning, is going to tell you a little bit more about that.
This campaign was launched by workers, like 4 workers in collaboration, obviously, with Working Washington, with the aim of creating broad sweeping and meaningful changes for all gig workers. And in order to succeed in achieving the bold demands of our campaign, we need to take bold actions in order to garner public support for our demands. So this is why this September after Labor Day, we're planning RAZ Days. RAZ Days is an action or a series of actions that will mobilize workers across platforms and across the country to hold gig companies accountable and demand new laws to protect our pay.
So the idea of this action is really that it's going to be about bringing together gig workers from across different apps and speaking out about the need for change, and also showing people that there's a really clear path to change that is exactly what workers have been calling for. The biggest thing here is that we really need to show that gig workers are united together in our call for new laws to protect our pay, and that across apps, we all have these same goals and this same vision. Showing that workers are united on this is a really, really important step in proving that there's a path forward. So there's a few different things that are going to happen during RAZ Days. The first is throughout this 4-day period, we're going to set a pay floor for ourselves, meaning for those 4 days, we're all going to agree to refuse jobs on our apps that fall below our pay floor, because what we're looking for is a law that provides us with that pay floor, but it doesn't exist yet. And we should have the right to decide what jobs are worth it to us and which ones aren't. So we're setting a pay floor of the equivalent of $15 an hour plus expenses, or minimum wage in your area plus expenses. And we will actually be providing calculators that you guys can use to calculate whether each job that you get offered falls below that pay floor or not. The second piece of it is going to be planning some in-person demonstrations. And then the last thing is going to be holding partner companies accountable. Now I'm going to pass it on to Mia, who's going to give you some more details on what we have planned for each day of this RAZ Days action.
Okay, so grab out your calendars and mark off these days. So we have 4 days to make a great impact and get the attention of all lawmakers and customers and companies. So we're going to do something a little different each day to build up that momentum. For each day of the RAZ Days, we'll be refusing jobs on our apps that fall under the pay floor that we want to see. And we'll also be doing different days, as Emily has already mentioned. Okay, so the first day, September 5th, day 1, we're going to take it to the companies. We're going to be holding in-person demonstrations at the offices of these gig companies that we work for. So we're talking about in Silicon Valley, we're talking about here in Seattle, including in Chicago and in New York. Okay, so day 2 is Friday, September 6th. We're going to take it to the politicians. We're going to be contacting our local and state legislators to make sure that they know what's going on in the gig economy and call upon them to make up the pay-up demands into law. So day 3, September 7th, we're going to take it to the partner companies. This is the part where we actually step up and we gather together in front of places like Costco and Chipotle. We know that these companies spend a lot of time and energy developing these partnerships and promoting them. And that's why we're reaching out to the partner companies to talk about why they're actually partnering with them. On day 3, we'll flyer outside our local Costco's and Chipotle's to reach out to new gig workers as well as customers and let them know why we're fighting for a change with the Pay Up campaign. So this is the last day, day 4, September 8th. We're going to come together and celebrate. And just remember, on all 4 of these days, we're going to be refusing jobs that fall below our pay floor to show the companies that we're not willing to accept the absurdly low pay that they're giving us. We want this to be as successful as possible, which means getting the word out there as much as possible. So I want you to get out there on your social media. I want you to talk about it. I want you to get more people to come and join you, to help fight with you and fight with me. We're going to do this in 2 major ways, okay? We're doing this outreach by calling people and having heart-to-heart dialogues. You can do this on social media. You can do this by calling them. And number 2 is we're going to use this new Rate Your Gig tool. All right, so that's all, you guys. Over to you, June.
So that's why in 2 months, we're going to prepare a movement called RAZ Days Option. And before we do this, we are going to collect different situations from different drivers. So we are going to push out a tool. It's called Rate Your Gig tool. And this is just a simple tool. It's really simple to fill out. It's just a tool that gathers all drivers from who work for different platforms, and the way the company treat us and how much they pay us and the wait time, etc. And this is just a really simple tool that will help us utilize our voice to see how all these companies treat us in different ways, so we can fight back easily, and we can also target specific company that treat us the worst. By doing this, we want to show the public and the customer that how all these companies are ridiculous and how they just treat us with no mercy. And second, we also want our new drivers and the existing drivers to know how all these companies are paying us, because they keep really secret, they keep all the information in secret. And since there's a large supply of drivers coming in every month, they can keep underpay us year by year and month by month and week by week. That's why we need to gather all our information to fight them back. And that's why right now, please fill out your, please do this survey, the Rate Your Gig tool. Just is a really simple survey you can do. And there's already 330 people fill this out. And we just need around 500 people.
And it would be great if you can all take the time to fill it out and to share it with fellow workers so that we can get enough ratings to release them. And now Teresa is going to talk about the other big thing we can all be doing leading up to our RAZ Days action in September, which is organizing and out.
The most important thing that we all can do within the next 2 months as we lead up to RAZ Days is to make sure that we have as many gig workers on board as possible. There are 2 things that we really need to get out into the world within the next couple of months leading up to RAZ Days. And as first, I love this, the Raise Your Gig tool. So we can collect at least 500 workers and release our rating of the gig companies. I just love it. And number 2, RAZ Days sign-on form. That is so important that everyone sign up so that we can keep track of how many workers are participating with RAZ Days and reach out to them on how they can take action. So one of the most valuable things that you can do to step up and organize in your community, that's the best thing that you can do. You can share and meet new workers. There's a lot of newbies out there, and bring workers in your area on board. Stepping up can look different for different people depending on how much time you have to help with outreach. But if you want to be successful, if we want to be successful, we need to make sure that we're all committed to doing some amount of outreach every week. It can be as simple as sharing links on Facebook, or if you have a little more time, reaching out to people to do a one-on-one to invite them to join in the action, or even organizing a local meetup to bring together workers locally who want to participate in this campaign. And these are the things that you really need to pay attention to going forward as we lead up to RAZ Days. Is first, share the link. Share the link on Facebook groups, one-on-one, and with workers online. You can also print out a flyer, which is online on our site, and hand them out to workers that you basically may run into from various platforms as you're working. You can also post outside of restaurants or stores and get that way you can get a lot of traction with people coming in and out from delivery apps, and talk to workers there and ask them to sign on. I think that it's good if you use an open-ended question where they don't have to say a yes or no, and that will invoke engagement. I will admit it may be challenging, but you have to keep moving forward. The best way to get results when reaching out to others, in my opinion, is by listening and show empathy. And listen, when you're listening, you're hearing their concerns, you're hearing their experiences and their story. I let them know that they're not alone in this. And that's the best way, is to let them know that they're not alone, that there's other shoppers out there that feel the same way. And then I let them know the importance of that one-on-one meetup at the local meetings, because then you can build community, you can build relationships, and that's when they can bring it to us. And Working Washington will do the rest. In addition to doing the one-on-one outreach for workers, we're planning an event to announce RAZ Days publicly, and that will be on August 8th. We'll be holding a live Facebook live stream panel, and anyone can watch. There will be workers there talking about their experiences in the gig economy, how it's affecting them, and explaining why there holding on and holding up to do RAZ Days.
Great, thank you, Teresa. So Teresa is just one of the amazing leaders who has stepped up on this campaign. And really the way that this whole thing has grown to the 9,000 workers who are part of it today is through people stepping up and organizing in their communities. And I know a bunch of you have done that already. I know a bunch of you have been out flyering for different things or just talking to gig workers, bringing them in, sharing stuff in your local Facebook groups. And it's really been incredible to see the momentum that that has built. And we have a couple months before our RAZ Days action, and I hope even more of you will get on board to bring more workers in your community in. The only way we win is by uniting gig workers together and bringing as many of us on board as possible. And I want to give a quick recap of what we covered today. So the biggest thing is the RAZ Days action, September 5th to 8th. We're going to be setting a pay floor and refusing jobs below that pay floor. We're going to be organizing in-person demonstrations, contacting our legislators, and doing outreach to partner companies that partner with the apps. And as we move towards RAZ Days, really important things to do are going to be connecting with more legislators in more cities, making sure that we have a path forward on laws in places besides Seattle, and also getting the word out and doing outreach and organizing. And that means getting the Rate Your Gig form out there into the world so we can prove how each of these companies is paying and treating workers, and doing outreach and organizing to get new gig workers involved in RAZ Days. I'm really excited to see all of the positive momentum in the chat. I know that this work is hard and it's exhausting and demoralizing. And I'm also amazed and super inspired by the gig workers who still are making time to organize and be part of this movement and make a change together. And I'm really proud of all of you for being here. So I think that's just about everything that we have to cover. It was excellent to get to see and meet all of you, and I hope I will hear from all of you very soon. Okay, bye.